Hallo Deutsch 2101, this is Herr D again for another tutorial. This time we're going to discuss the accusative case, and just to note, pretty much all four of these cases can be used within one sentence, but I'm just focusing primarily on each of these cases individually, and we'll see other examples throughout the semester that show all of them together. As we saw in the previous nominative tutorial, we have sentences which are consisting of the subject plus the predicate. The accusative case does also include a subject, but it also includes what's called a direct object. Okay? And so, for example, we have, let's look at these first few. Nina tanzt gern, Nina und Alexander gehen oft in die Disco. Okay, so we have subjects over here, and then we just have other parts of speech, which, in this case, gern is an adverb, and oft in die Disco is a prepositional phrase. If the icon is not mein Bruder Alfred verdient viel Geld. Now we have a subject, all you have to do in case someone comes in is what we have here is the direct object. The direct object, well, here we'll get other examples of this. The easiest example I can tell you is that the accusative is going to be, let's put it this way. If you are writing a paper, reading a book, cooking dinner, go to that and you can see it's also listed right riding here. A bike. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this program. The individual doing all those actions, would be the subject. All right. Reading a book, the book would be the object. The dinner would be the object. The bike would be the object. So those are all considered the accusative part of the basic program. So there's a lot of stuff going on up here. Really, you only need so let's look at some of these examples. So we have all this list on the left-hand side. Stop. Okay, would be the nominative, and then the accusative being on the right-hand side. Der Pullover ist schön. To make a recording, and also you need to make sure that your volume is turned up on your computer. Lovely. Ich kaufe den Pullover. That does help. And also make sure that the microphone is using the indefinite article. Ein Pullover ist teuer. But this is a good thing to double check as part of your brauche einen Pullover. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click. So we can see we have these masculine pullover, der and ein, and they change from den right to here that it is really that's the only change that's going to happen to any of the articles. That das sweatshirt, ein sweatshirt remains das and ein sweatshirt when they are objects. It is not capturing my voice. Ich kaufe das Sweatshirt, ich brauche ein Sweatshirt. Die Jacke, eine Jacke, in the nominative case, still remain die Jacke and eine Jacke when they are direct objects, and same with plural, die Schuhe, ich kaufe die Schuhe. Okay. If I forget what I wanted to record, the easiest thing to do is just click pause. Okay, alright, now we have two comparisons using the nominative in the top row, accusative all I have to do is unpause, and you can see it just picks up right where you left off. And as we can see, also hit der einen kein Rock if I wanted to take a break, einen keinen Rock. My students make recordings, and sometimes they have to answer several questions, and everything else stays the same, regardless if they are the subject or unlike the pause, where I just had to unpause to continue recording. If I hit stop, I actually have to go and use the left cursor of the mouse and click the nominative interrogative pronoun then hit record. Who? All right. The accusative is going to be vain. Row basically of a recording, but it does pick up right where I left off. The dative, there is one other way of using whom, and that's vain. Okay, and then so the easiest way I like to use this would be ver, vain, and vain, and just think of the masculine. Ihn, ihm. Okay, that will maybe make sense a little later on. Okay. Nominative, wer arbeitet als Physiotherapeuten? But I didn't really quite like what I had. Okay. Wer ist Nina's Lieblingstante? Assignment. Okay, so notice these are just asking simple questions. Who works as a physical therapist, and who is Nina's favorite aunt? In the accusative case, we change these to vain. Vain besucht Nina in Salzburg. In vain findet Robert langweilig. Because I'm satisfied with whom is Nina visiting in Salzburg, and whom the only way to save it to boring. Now this sounds somewhat odd to the native speaker of English, because a lot of times we tend to simply just use who for all these, but it is very distinct when you need to use whom and when you need to use who. Fortunately in German, those are separated by different letters. But that just means it's only going to be saved on the computer that you're working on. And what you'd want to do. And just as the definite articles have changes, so do the indefinite articles as well as the possessive adjectives. I'd recommend exporting it as an MP3 because it's not going to be quite as big of a file. It's not going to take up as much space as a WAV file. Euer Computer, euren
And also
Computer.
be sure if students come in to ask,
Mein Computer,
if they say,
computer.
well, I just want to save it as a project.
Okay, and I'm just focusing
tell
on the
them
masculine
that if
because the
if
others
you
stay
save
the
it as
same.
a project and try to
We'll see some
export it
examples
and
of
send it
these
to their professor, they're not going to be able to hear it on their
momentarily.
end. So we're going to export it as MP3.
The nominative was showing der rote,
Go
just as we see with
desktop.
das blaue Hemd, die
I'm gonna
braune.
test
But in the
my
accusative it changes, den roten
test.
Pulli, einen roten
Audacity.
Pulli,
Click
deutschen
save.
Wein. So when would you use
might get a
these?
different
Well, I might
looking
say,
box that shows up. I think
ich
the newer
möchte
version
den
of
roten
Audacity,
Pulli.
is
Ich
a
möchte
little bit different
einen
looking.
roten Pulli.
Basically, you just want to hit
Okay.
OK.
So I'd
and you
like
can see
the
it's recording,
red sweater.
and
I'd
I'm
like
now
a
good to
red
go.
sweater.
And that's exactly how
Or I could just
you
say a simple
make a
statement.
recording,
Ich
and
trinke
all you
gern
have to do
deutschen Wein.
is to
I
send
like to
this
drink
your
German
professor. That's
wine.
the same as
And
any
that's
other
how that would
file
be
to
said.
attach. Thank you.
Using nicht, okay? So for example, and this is always something that can be changed at times, and I say that only because of how you want to emphasize something, okay? Es ist nicht kalt, ich koche nicht gern, ich gehe nicht ins Kino. Nicht must precede these, adjectives, adverbs, and phrases. Okay, but it is going to follow a direct object. Goodbye Lenin ist ein guter Film. Mein Freund kennt den Film nicht. So Goodbye Lenin is a good movie, a good film. My friend does not know the movie. Does not know the movie. Notice in English it's a completely different use of the word order. Okay. This slide is included in here, not necessarily to do with the accusative case, just where it falls within a particular chapter that I've used to describe this part of the grammar. Nevertheless, this is a good chart to know. As a matter of fact, this was one of the verbs we used today in today's lesson. Fahren. Der Mann fährt durch die Stadt. Okay, so here we have verbs with stem vowel changes, and there are 4 common groups: E to I to IE, A to A umlaut, and this actually should be AU to AU with the umlaut. Sprechen, lesen, fahren, laufen. Okay? These are the most commonly used verbs with these. I to I, essen, geben, nehmen, sprechen, versprechen, werden. To eat, to give, to take, to speak, to promise, to become. Lesen and sehen, to read, to see. Backen, fahren, halten, lassen, schlafen, tragen, waschen. To bake, to drive, to hold, or to keep. Lassen, to let, schlafen, to sleep, tragen, to carry, or to wear, waschen, to wash, laufen, to run. Das ist alles für den Akkusativfall. Dankeschön. Tschüss.